Ever notice how when you think about a small town, you get this feeling like, picture it,
Mm-hmm.
Main Street,
Yeah.
maybe one traffic light, the whole everyone knows your name kind of vibe.
Right,
It's
right.
almost like this universal idea we all have about these places, like
Yeah.
peaceful, safe, quiet.
Totally.
But, and here's the thing,
Yeah.
what if that whole closeness thing, that sense of safety everyone assumes comes with small towns, what if it's all kind of a front?
Oh, I like where you're going with this.
What if the really messed up, intense crimes, the ones that stick with you,
Mm.
what if those can actually like grow and take hold in these places that seem so idyllic?
You're talking about that contrast, right? Like
Exactly.
how we think of small towns as peaceful and quiet, but then there's this potential for something really dark and twisted underneath.
Yeah. And that clash, those two opposites, that's what makes these kind of stories so gripping, so fascinating.
It makes you question everything you think you know about a place and about people, too.
For sure. And so that's what we're going to really get into today.
Okay, I'm ready.
We've got this list, right, of the 10 best small-town crime movies.
10 best, huh? We've got our work cut out for us.
And this deep dive, think of it like a cheat sheet, but like a really engaging cheat sheet,
I like those.
to help us understand why these seemingly sleepy places, these small towns, become the backdrop for these really dark, compelling stories.
So we're looking at what makes small towns so ripe for crime stories in movies.
Exactly. And we're going to be pulling from plot summaries, critical reactions, the whole shebang.
All the good stuff.
But the main goal, the mission here, is to unpack why small towns and crime just work so well together on screen. What is it about that combination that pulls us in?
And I think looking at this list, one thing that jumps out is how these movies all kind of chip away at that perfect small town image.
Yeah, it's like they're peeling back the layers, showing you what might be hiding underneath.
Right. They show you how secrets can get buried deep, how resentment can simmer for years, and then how violence can just erupt suddenly in places you'd least expect.
And that intimacy, which is usually seen as like a good thing in small towns, everyone being close,
Yeah, like a sense of community.
gets twisted into something else, right?
Yeah.
When things go wrong, that closeness can become this breeding ground for tension and suspicion.
Definitely. Because everyone knows everyone's business, so it's hard to hide anything. And that can be a recipe for trouble.
Okay, so let's dive into the list.
Let's do it.
Number 10, Mystic River.
Okay, Mystic River.
And it's set in Boston, but not the whole city. It's focused on this one neighborhood.
Right, so it still has that small town feel.
Yeah, that everyone knows everyone kind of thing. And it's about this murder, this really devastating murder of Jimmy Markham's daughter.
Ah, it's a tough one.
And it pulls in his two childhood friends, Dave and Sean. Dave was the last person to see her alive.
Oh, wow.
And Sean is the detective on the case.
So they're both right in the middle of this horrible situation.
And to make it even more complicated, Jimmy, the father, he starts his own investigation.
So you've got all these layers of grief, suspicion, and the past all tangled up together.
Right, and what makes Mystic River more than just a whodunit is how it explores trauma.
You mean how the characters' past experiences shape their present?
Exactly. It looks at how childhood trauma can leave these lasting scars on people and on a whole community.
And how those scars can influence how they react to this tragedy.
Exactly. And those Oscar-winning performances, Sean Penn and Tim Robbins.
Amazing performances. They really bring you into the emotional turmoil these characters are going through.
Oh, absolutely. And Kevin Bacon, too. He's fantastic in it.
He's often overlooked, but his performance is really nuanced.
Right. It's a film that stays with you, even after you know all the twists and turns.
For sure. It gets under your skin.
Okay, let's move on to number 9, A History of Violence.
This one I remember.
And this is your classic small-town setting. The story focuses on Tom Stahl.
Tom Stahl.
He owns this quiet little diner, and then one day he stops a robbery really bravely.
Instant hero.
Totally. But then this guy, Carl Fogarty, shows up,
Oh.
and he's convinced Tom is actually this mobster in hiding.
So the small town hero might have a dark past.
Yeah, and the movie really digs into this question. Can you ever truly escape your past?
Especially when violence is involved. It's like, can you ever really leave that behind?
Right. And it looks at how violence can be cyclical, how it can keep repeating itself.
And how it affects not just the person committing the violence, but everyone around them.
It's their families, the community, Everyone.
And Viggo Mortensen, he's amazing as Tom Stahl. You totally believe him as both this quiet family man and someone with a violent past.
Right. Like, is he a good guy forced into violence, or is he something else entirely?
And that small town setting makes it even more intense because everyone thinks they know Tom.
Okay, number 8, a simple plan.
Okay, what's simple about this plan?
Oh, nothing is simple about this plan. It's all about how a seemingly easy decision can go so wrong.
So what's the plan?
Okay, so there's Hank Mitchell, his brother Jacob, who's, well, a little less reliable, shall we say.
Okay.
And their buddy Lou. They find a crashed plane.
A crash plane?
Yeah, and inside, there's $4 million.
Whoa.
So they decide, hey, let's keep this a secret.
Yeah, that's where things usually go wrong in these movies.
Right, and things get really bad really fast.
Okay, so not so simple after all.
Nope. The film shows how greed can corrupt even people who seem like they have good morals.
Yeah, that temptation, it can change people.
And Hank, he's supposed to be the responsible one, but he gets pulled into it too.
So the money tears them apart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because it's a small town, secrets are hard to keep.
Right, everyone knows everyone.
It adds this pressure cooker feeling to the whole thing.
Like they're trapped.
And Sam Raimi, the director, he's got this background in horror movies, and he brings that tension to a simple plan.
Oh, interesting.
You're constantly on edge, waiting for the next bad thing to happen.
Like a slow burn horror movie, but with money instead of ghosts.
Exactly. Okay, number 7, Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water, love this one.
This one takes us to West Texas. It's about these two brothers, Toby and Tanner.
Okay.
They start robbing banks.
Whoa, hold on. Why?
Well, here's the thing. It's not just about getting rich. They're trying to save their family's ranch.
So it's like a Robin Hood situation.
Kind of, but more complicated.
I figured.
And there's this Texas Ranger, Marcus, and his partner, Alberto, on their trail.
Okay, so it's a chase.
It is, but it's also about family, loyalty, and what happens when you're desperate.
And it's a Western, right?
It's a modern Western, yeah. It's got that classic Western feel, but set in the present day.
That's what I love about it. It takes those classic themes and updates them for today.
And the landscape, West Texas, it's almost a character in the film.
Yeah, those wide open spaces, it adds to the feeling of both freedom and desperation.
It's beautifully shot, too.
Yeah.
And the director, Taylor Sheridan, he's the guy who did Yellowstone, you know.
Oh, yeah, I love that show.
He's really good at capturing these small-town communities where people are struggling, where the old ways of life are clashing with modern problems.
And he makes you understand why these brothers would do what they do, even if it's illegal.
Exactly. You might not agree with their choices, but you get where they're coming from.
Okay, what's next on the list?
Number 6, Wind River.
Wind River, another one set out west.
This one takes place on a Native American reservation in Wyoming.
Okay, so very isolated.
It is. It starts with this wildlife officer, Corey Lambert, finding the body of a young woman.
Oh, man.
Turns out she was raped and murdered.
That's awful.
And so this FBI agent, Jane Banner, shows up to investigate.
Yeah.
But she's not familiar with the reservation, so she has to rely on Corey's knowledge.
And navigate that world, yeah.
And the film really shines a light on the issues that these communities face.
Issues that a lot of people don't even know about.
Right, like systemic neglect, violence, the feeling of being forgotten.
It's powerful stuff.
Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen, they give these really incredible performances.
They're both such great actors.
And the setting, Wyoming, it's so stark and beautiful,
Yeah.
but it also reflects that sense of isolation.
Yeah, like the landscape is mirroring the characters' internal states.
And it's a slow burn. The tension builds slowly throughout the film, but it's so gripping. You're just pulled into this world and these characters' lives.
Okay, I'm adding this one to my list.
Definitely worth watching. Okay, we're getting to the top 5 now.
All right, let's hear it.
Number 5 is Badlands.
Badlands. Haven't seen that one.
It's a bit of a different one. It's based loosely on those real-life murders by Charles Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugate.
Oh, wow. So true crime inspiration.
Yeah, but it's definitely stylized, not like a straight retelling. It's about this teenage girl, Holly, and her older boyfriend, Kit.
Older boyfriend? How much older are we talking?
Enough that her dad doesn't approve. And things get really bad when Kit kills her father.
Oh, jeez.
And then they go on the run, this crime spree across the Midwest.
So it's a road movie, but with a lot of darkness.
Right. And it's told from Holly's point of view, which is what makes it so unsettling.
How so?
She narrates the whole thing, but she's so detached, even when Kit is doing these awful things.
Smells like she's numb to it all.
Yeah, and that makes you question what's going on in her head. It's disturbing, but also fascinating.
Like, you want to understand how someone could become that detached from reality.
And this was Terrence Malick's first film, the director.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and you can see some of his signature style already, even in his debut.
Yeah.
That way of using landscapes and visuals to create mood and atmosphere.
So beautiful but disturbing.
Exactly. It's a film that stays with you because of how it makes you feel, more than just the plot itself.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
All right, number 4,
Get me with it.
In Cold Blood.
Now that's a classic.
A total classic. It's based on Truman Capote's book. You know, the one about the Clutter family murders.
Yeah, I remember reading about that case. It was brutal.
It was. These two ex-convicts, Perry Smith and Richard Hickok, they broke into the Clutter family's house in Kansas.
Thinking they were rich.
Right. They thought there was a safe full of cash. But they were wrong, and they ended up killing the whole family.
Awful.
And the film doesn't shy away from the horror of what happened.
But it's also about the killers, right?
Yeah, it tries to understand who they were, what led them to this point.
So it's not just about the crime, but about the people involved.
And the film has this almost documentary-like feel to it.
Right.
Very stark, very real.
That makes sense, given Capote's approach to the book. He really dug deep into the story.
And Robert Blake and Scott Wilson, they give these chilling performances as the killers. You really feel like you're seeing these real people with all their flaws and darkness.
It's a film that forces you to think about the dark side of human nature and how violence can erupt in the most unexpected places.
And that small town setting, it makes it even more impactful. This family living their lives and then this sudden brutal act, it shatters that sense of peace and safety.
Okay, we're in the top 3 now. What's next?
Number 3, 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Oh, this one's great.
It's about Mildred Hayes. Her daughter was murdered, but the case went cold.
So no justice for her daughter.
Right. And she's angry. She wants answers. So she does this really bold thing.
What's that?
She puts up 3 billboards right outside the town.
Billboards, what do they say?
They call out the police chief, William Willoughby, for not solving the case.
Wow, that's taking it public.
Yeah, and it causes this huge uproar in the town.
I bet everyone's talking about it.
And the film explores her grief, her rage, and how far she's willing to go to get justice.
It's a powerful story about a mother's love and her fight for her daughter.
But it's also about how this small town reacts.
Right, because those billboards, they force everyone to take sides.
And it brings up all these questions about right and wrong, about justice and how it's served.
And it's got this amazing cast. Frances McDormand as Mildred is phenomenal.
Oh, she's incredible. And Woody Harrelson as the police chief?
And Sam Rockwell, he plays this cop, Bixen, who's really struggling.
Right. He's got his own demons.
And the film doesn't make it easy. There's no clear heroes or villains.
Yeah, it's messy and real. And that's what makes it so compelling.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's number 2?
Number 2 is No Country for Old Men.
Ah, the Coen brothers.
It's set in West Texas, like Hell or High Water. But this one has a different feel, much more intense.
Okay, tell me more.
So this guy, Llewellyn Moss, he finds the aftermath of a drug deal gone wrong.
Gone wrong how?
Like, everyone's dead, and there's $2 million just sitting there.
Oh, boy. Here we go again.
He takes the money, of course.
Who wouldn't? But that's got to be a bad idea.
It is. It puts him on this collision course with Anton Chigurh.
Who's that?
He's a hitman, but not your average hitman. He's like this force of nature, completely ruthless.
Sounds terrifying.
He is.
Yeah.
And the film is about fate, free will, you know, those big questions.
Heavy stuff.
It is, but it's also incredibly suspenseful. You're just waiting to see if Llewellyn can outrun Chigurh.
And Kenny.
You'll have to watch and see. But Javier Bardem, he won an Oscar for his portrayal of Chigurh. He's unforgettable.
Okay, I'm ready for number 1.
Okay, the top spot goes to Fargo.
Fargo! I knew it! That movie's a masterpiece.
Coen brothers at their best. And it's got everything. Crime, dark humor, and this small town setting that's both familiar and unsettling.
So what's the story?
It's about Jerry Lundegaard. He sells cars, but he's in a lot of debt.
Uh-oh. Sounds like trouble.
He is. He comes up with this crazy plan to hire 2 guys to kidnap his wife.
Kidnap his own wife? Why?
For the ransom money, he thinks he can trick his father-in-law into paying it.
Oh, man, that's so messed up.
And of course, the plan goes completely wrong.
Well, yeah, it's the Coen brothers. Nothing goes right in their movies.
And Frances McDormand, she plays Marge Gunderson, the police chief.
Oh, Marge, she's the best.
She's pregnant, super sharp, and she's the one trying to unravel this whole mess.
And she's hilarious, too.
The way she talks, her whole demeanor, it's iconic. And she's the moral center of the film.
Right, she's surrounded by all this chaos and absurdity, but she stays true to herself.
It's a film that makes you laugh, cringe, and really think about the choices people make.
And how, even in the most ordinary places, things can go very, very wrong.
So we've gone through all 10 films. What are your thoughts?
Wow, it's amazing how many common themes run through all these stories.
Right. Like what?
Well, that idea of the peaceful small town being shattered, it happens over and over again.
Yeah, the facade is broken, and we see the darkness underneath.
And greed, it's a powerful motivator in so many of these films.
People doing terrible things for money, or for what they think will solve their problems.
And the relationships, the trust and betrayal, that's a big one too.
Especially in these small towns where everyone knows each other.
Right, those betrayals cut deeper because the bonds are supposed to be stronger.
In the past, it keeps coming back to haunt the characters.
Like they can't escape what happened before.
And then there's this question of morality. What happens when people are pushed to extremes?
Do they hold on to their values or do they compromise?
It's something all these films make you think about.
And the small town setting, it's not just a background, it's like another character in these stories.
Yeah, it shapes everything. The
Yeah.
intimacy, the isolation, it all plays a part.
The intimacy can make the betrayals more intense, like we said,
And the isolation, it can both hide secrets and make the violence more shocking.
because you don't expect it in these quiet, seemingly peaceful places.
So in a way, these films are all about subverting our expectations of small towns.
Yeah, they use that image we have, that idealized image, and then they turn it on its head.
And through that, they explore the darker aspects of human nature.
They show us that even in the most idyllic settings, darkness can exist.
And that the things we think of as strengths in small towns, like closeness and community,
Yeah,
those things can also create vulnerabilities.
because familiarity can breed secrecy, and maybe even a willingness to look the other way when things go wrong.
It's like the very things that make small towns appealing can also make them susceptible to these kinds of stories.
So it makes you wonder.
It does. It makes you think about your own perceptions of small towns and whether those perceptions hold up when you look a little closer.
And it makes you wonder if maybe we're all just a little bit vulnerable no matter where we live.
So here's something to think about. We often say that the close-knit nature of small towns is a good thing, right?
Yeah, people looking out for each other, a sense of community.
But what if that very closeness, that everyone knows everyone dynamic, what if that can also make it easier to keep secrets?
Oh, interesting.
Because if you don't want something to get out, you can rely on that unwritten code of silence.
The don't air your dirty laundry mentality.
Exactly. And what if that silence, that unwillingness to speak up, can actually allow bad things to fester?
So the same thing that creates that sense of community can also make it harder to address problems.
Right. It's a complicated issue, and it's something to consider the next time you think about the appeal of small-town life. Because maybe it's not as simple as we often imagine.
Food for thought for sure.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. And to our listeners, keep those questions coming, and we'll keep exploring.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.